Yeah, me know. This is Kia Bamba song. We run the whole of Switzerland and the whole of Europe. And we run the whole of etc, etc. You don't know. Devil Shaman says something. I bat them to the max. And it's like some idiot someone want to stop them from get a piece of the pie. Oh, I'm to no disrespect, gonna go and die. Yeah, me know. Kia Bamba, them up dubs. We play fast, I play slow. Them up flows like nobody.
Welcome to Only Friends on a Power Day, your one-stop shop for all things snow, mountain and travel. Get all you need to know about epic destinations, inspiring stories from local legends all around the globe, as well as creators, entrepreneurs, brands, owners and more. We are here to talk about what's hot, what's changing the game and what's incoming. Come along for the ride, froth out and let's have fun doing it.
Here we are, Austin. Back for another episode after wrapping up some introductory material, and I think it would be very pleasant if we gave our potential listeners a little background into who we are and why we're here. So, full disclaimer for those that are listening or watching, this one is going to be a little bit of an insight into your co-hosts and how we ended up here. So, if you're not interested in that, skip along to the next episode. But if you are, let's talk about it.
Well, thank you, Matthew. I wouldn't have anyone else that I'd rather be here with. Just to touch on that quickly before we get into it, Matthew and I have been friends for, 30 plus? 30 years now. Went to school together, grew up together, had many good times together. A few weird times, but very few and far between, mostly good weird times. So let's crack into it, mate. Where do you want to start?
I think we start with how you got here, Ozzy. So as a fellow Adelaidean, obviously those that are from Australia would know that there's certainly no snow or no mountains to speak of in our beautiful state of South Australia where we grew up. But there's certainly an appetite for the snow, and so keen to hear how you got started.
Well, yeah, I guess I would have been about 3 when I first decided found out that I was going to the snow. And we do have a Mount Theberton in Adelaide. I don't know if it's still there.
Did have a Mount Theberton.
Which is an indoor ski slope, very small one. And I think that was my first time on snow because my folks wanted to prep me for the giant mountains of Falls Creek. They're very small. So I think that was my first journey, and I went up to Falls. I was lucky enough, I guess, to go up to the snow, probably every year for a week or two as probably my favourite holiday ever. And there was a lot of froth around it to get up there in the school holidays. And, it was a big drive. Australia is obviously a pretty big place. It's pretty much 10+ hour drive with small children. So we
didn't have iPads back then either, so
no.
You had to survive on Red, Frogs and I Spy.
I remember when we got a little bit older, my dad used to play the Lord of the Rings tapes in the car to try and entertain us. And
so you had a 10-hour snooze.
Pretty much.
Perfect.
He was into that.
Your folks would have been pumped.
My mum, not so much.
No.
Sister, a little bit older, a little bit more. Me, I couldn't concentrate.
She wanted Spice Girls the whole way there or something.
Pretty much. But anyway, we would probably leave at the crack of dawn, like 4 or 5 in the morning, drive to Mount Beauty. They had the Alamar Ranch. And I always remembered that place as a kid being so pumped when we got there because it had a built-in ground trampoline. So we'd get there and try and jump on the trampoline so that we could see the snow on the mountains and bogon and everything.
Did that work?
Not really.
Okay.
But we tried.
Yeah, cool.
And then, sleep the night, super stoked, wake up the next morning, crack of dawn, drive up the mountain, stay for a good week or so. And that's where it all started, and we do that pretty much every winter.
Were you a ski school kid, Milo kid or something? Were you in ski school,
yes.
Or was it? Did your mum and dad just set you off at the top and?
No, I was a ski school kid. I remember my dad seeing me one day flying down the run called Towers with my boots undone, just straight lining, being like, what are they doing?
I reckon I've seen you ski a few times with your boots undone, but it wasn't because you were too old too young to know what to do.
No, I've
Might have
done
been
that
other
at the
reasons.
top of the time, at top of a mountain a couple of times when I haven't gone back into touring mode, but that's a story for another day. So yeah, I absolutely loved it. As I said, it's my favourite holiday. Super into it, super competitive. Loved my end of the ski school week ski races. And, you know, I started to build some serious froth over skiing at that young age, which is, you know, if you've skied before, and I snowboarded a few times in Sorels as well.
Awesome.
But, you know, the Sorels with the little like shin guard inside them didn't really froth me out as much as skiing because I was at a better level from starting at a much younger age. So I reckon I did that every year from about 3 to 16-ish. And by that stage, I was getting a bit naughty.
You had other hobbies.
Yes. And, you know, I'd played a lot of like soccer and things like that. And I was getting over just, you know, doing things that people told me to do, I guess. So at that stage, I kind of was rebelling and probably didn't ski again until the end of school. And as I finished school, I decided to not go to uni because I was so sick of studying and that kind of system. And I went and worked in insurance for a couple of years, did really, really well. And then,
I remember you as a suit and tie guy.
yeah, lasted a couple.
It suited you aesthetically, but not personality.
No, I definitely pulled it off inside the workplace. But I guess definitely by the end of the couple of years, I was getting itchy feet. And by the Thursday, Friday, there was probably a lot more partying going on and a lot less productivity. And then, you know, I think I remember I went for a promotion and didn't get it and felt overlooked. So I, as I do, said, stuff this. I'm done, and decided to go back to uni for 6 months. And at that point, I think you and I were hanging out a lot more. I'd probably
We'd rekindled. We'd rekindled our love affair.
We had, because I was hanging out with some different people who we didn't go to school with, I guess, through my more senior years at school. And that kind of got me in a little bit of strife, and I decided to kind of step away.
You reset your moral compass and you found some of us more wholesome folk.
Correct. And I was always good mates with a lot of these guys through school. I just was hanging out with a bit of a different crowd. And at that point, I went back to uni to do a bridging course, to do a business degree. And again, did like the first kind of couple of terms of the season, or the terms, I don't know what you call them, the semesters, that's the word I'm looking for. And at that point, you know, Maddie had already gone and done a season, I believe, in Falls and in Beaver Creek. And there was talk of going to Canada. And I all of a sudden decided, like, I don't need to finish uni right now. Like, I love skiing. I want to go ski in real mountains on the other side of the world. I'd love to do this. So I ended up going all in with Maddie and another mate of mine. And
I also think you were pretty competitive because I remember, we were rehashing this before, but I remember showing you some videos of a little summer setup that we built with a box and some AstroTurf, and this was in the early days of people sliding stuff on skis. And I remember you sitting there going, I reckon I could do that. I'm on for that. And then within a few weeks, it was like, all right, we're going to Fernie.
Yeah.
We'll find out.
So yeah, I was at that point, thought I was a pretty good advanced expert kid skier with a super tight parallel style, and hadn't really understood this whole new school movement. And yeah, within a couple of weeks, being the human that I was, I sold my car. I sold my parents some shares, which I got given as a present.
I thought you were going to say you sold your parents' car as well. Then I was like, well, I don't remember that. That'd be nice.
No, I got gifted shares from like a godfather or something when I was like 13 or something, and sold them
back, liquidate.
Sold them back, and I think my parents did pretty well out of that, but I got a flight to Canada, so it was all worth it.
Better.
And then, yeah, ended up in Fernie, and boy, I guess that was where my steep learning curve started. Had to buy new boots, had to buy my first set of power skis, which was Salomon
Pocket rockets? Did you buy pocket? You got pocket
No,
roads, didn't you?
Salomon 1080 guns, the
That's
version
right,
after
1080
the
guns.
metalcore bad boys.
Yeah.
And, that season, Maddie and I was probably terrified. No, my first day of that season was Castle Mountain opening day. Din set on like 6 or something, took one turn in the pow, ski flipped off. I had to climb up like opening day Castle Mountain with my arms buried below my pole to retrieve my ski. So yeah, straight in the deep end. And to be honest, I wouldn't have it any other way. I reckon I finished that season with my DINs on about 9. So my skis weren't popping off all the time. And I was scared shitless probably for the first month, skiing in Fernie, trying to follow around Maddie and another good mate of ours who was a very, very talented skier who'd lived in Fernie for a couple of years and was following around the best of the best over there. So I learned very quickly, because I did have a good base, how to hang. And just to circle back quickly, because I thought that I'd be able to jump on rails and boxes straight away with no idea what I was doing. I did actually try and disaster my first rail if I couldn't get on easily, bounced off and separated my shoulder. And it was a 3-week injury. I was back on snow in 2 weeks. And yeah.
Humbling resort.
It is. And it was a very icy morning that day, and that hurt. But Fernie was the start of something where I'm all in. I'm a passionate kind of guy, and if I put my mind to something and froth on it, then it's pretty hard to stop me. And as Maddie said, slightly competitive.
Very competitive.
So
did you know then, when was there a point in Fernie, like first morning or first day ski and pow, or like was there a point in Fernie where you went, I reckon this is me forever? Or was it kind of like a gradual, well, that was a pretty sick season, I might do another one?
I think for me was the scenery of Fernie really captured me in the beauty of those mountains and just the awesome chilled vibes of the Canadians, except when the Sparwood folk came up and tried to bash you on New Year's. But I think for me, probably some of the most memorable moments for sure was really like getting that epic deep power day feeling and like nailing, I think it was Cedar Ridge.
Yeah.
Cedar Ridge, I remember like everything started to click for me, and I was so scared going down there at the start of the season, like was like looping really long turns to just like not fall behind. And I remember that I was like getting these like epic turny, like popping out of the snow because that metalcore ski really flicked you out. And after that, I was like, I'm hooked.
Yeah.
And it just, I remember skiing. Yeah. And like you were skiing the pontoons that year and like getting into the gear and just frothing. There was no turning back. And that was the start of, literally, to just put it simply, 20 back-to-back winters for me. I didn't miss one for the next 10 years.
What summer?
Yeah, I didn't see. This is my first summer I worked out this year in 17 years. So that gives you a bit of an idea of how much of a addiction I had. But next year back at Falls Creek, then it was Japan. You came over for a month that year, I remember.
Yeah.
You had those new Amplid skis.
Yeah.
I went and I'd spent so much money at the bar that year on my credit card, and that's what helped me buy my flight along with the dole to get over to Japan, because I lost my job at the end of the season at Falls Creek, being loose. And then I ended up buying a pair of Atomic Thugs. I think they were 182,
I remember that.
140, 120, 130, like a 32-meter radius on my credit card, because I just frothed out so much on fat skis and skiing pow. And then, that was it. Falls Creek, Japan again, then Falls Creek, then Europe for a season, then Falls Creek, then Japan, Falls Creek, Japan, Falls Creek, Japan. And then, eventually gave up Falls Creek as business opportunities came to me in Japan. But I wouldn't change it for the world. It was such an awesome journey for me. I obviously came into, leading a rental shops in Falls Creek, which followed Matty's footsteps. I kind of took over his job as he left to other opportunities. And, then I pursued opportunities with a proper visa in Japan and took everything that came to me over there and, skied, built a family and did the back and forth. And
I feel like that there's a turning point for a lot of people that go down the rabbit hole of season life where you kind of get to a point where you're like, I'm either gonna give up, or I'm gonna be the old dude at the rental shop still spinning din, or I'm gonna forge a career out of this that's more long term and prosperous. Was there a point for you where you sort of went, all right, this living season life is hand to mouth, right? There's a point in time where you go, I'd actually like to make this my life, but not be scraping together pennies to afford 2-minute noodles and a jug at the bar. Where you go, I want to make this, I want to be successful in this industry.
100% there was. And I'm stubborn and competitive. And I remember copping a lot of slack from especially my parents being like, you're a ski bum, when are you going to do something with your life? You can't do this forever. And, that just kind of drove me more to make something of it. And, I remember a couple of points. I think the main one was when my parents came and visited me in Falls Creek finally, after I'd built myself up to be, running a lot of the rental shops and writing roster for 50 plus staff. And I think before that, though, I turned around to someone in Japan and was like, oh, bloody ski bums, blah, blah. He's like, what are you talking about, mate? We're not ski bums. This is our career. And he'd come from a very different background, from a very different area, which was surprisingly Cooma in New South Wales, where that was what they did. That was
life for a lot of people.
Yeah. And they, had built a really amazing business there, which we'll probably touch on in another episode. But, that made me really think about it, that this could be a career. But then the real turning point for me, there was 2 points, really, 3. It was one when my parents came up and visited me in Falls Creek and saw that I was actually running a business and not just being a loose ski bum, and that I had a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
And I was doing it and having fun doing it and doing what I loved. I all of a sudden were like, oh, shit.
And how parents sometimes, well, I guess heaps of people that don't know the industry probably assume that it's one of the most complex environments to make work, from the types of people that you have to the complexity of the very nature of the resort, and it's, how fickle it is around Mother Nature, and, how that determines how many hours people get, and everyone in co-share lodging, and you're almost a shrink as much as you are a boss at times. But the complexity and the responsibility is, I feel like, often undersold or overlooked by a lot of people.
Yeah, I guess, with that was a big step up for me at that point at Falls, but you did have a pretty good support network with, all the departments. But then, again, when my folks came and visited in Japan, and we were a very big growing business, not a corporate business. We were a small, quickly growing business, should I say, not a corporate business. And I had all this similar responsibility, but lodging and all this other stuff that I had to take care of. And they saw this beautiful place and shop, and I was in Japan with a similar kind of thing, and I was making it work in 2 hemispheres. They were like, you're a determined human. And yeah, I guess I realized that I was kind of pretty proud of where I got, and I obviously skied a lot and pushed my skiing as hard as I could for someone trying to also build a career, being the determined human that I was. At that point, before kids and everything, it was pretty stoked and pretty happy. obviously met Alicia, my wife at that time. And then, years went by and had kids and everything got a little bit harder, but I still absolutely loved and was
Let's touch on the professional aspect though, because you've gone from seasonaire to shop manager to, let's dive quickly into the rhythm piece, right? Because I think that's a critical component and a large part of your story, particularly in terms of the, industry standing. But to be a part of, an owner of, essentially a founder of part of that rhythm business that's known globally, essentially as a go-to retail and rental destination in Japan. I think you should hit on that a little bit. How'd we land there, and what was that journey for those years?
I guess I really wanted to be in Japan, and I absolutely loved it because the snow was the best, and
the drinks are cheap.
They are. And I just wanted, that's where I wanted to ski, especially after I went to France and had an average season. I had a great time. I partied lots, skied some awesome lines, but I just missed that total everyday kind of guaranteed deep snow feeling. So I went back to Japan in any way that I could, and that was working, with illegally without a visa for a couple of years. And that's what I had to do, and getting by, paying for lodging or whatever I needed to do. And then, as things changed, I decided that I wasn't, and I kind of touched on this I will touch on this when talking with Alicia, but I kind of had been in Hakuba for a couple of years. I started up in Niseko for my first couple of seasons, and I felt that I was really accepted kind of as more of a local, and I had a lot more love coming at me in Niseko. So at that point, I kind of decided in the middle of the season, as it was warming up in Hakuba, I wanted to be back in Niseko. So I left my job, went back up to Niseko, ran into the owner of Rhythm, or the major owner of Rhythm in the bar at the time. And he's like, "What are you doing back up here?" And I said, I've just left Hakuba. I was getting over it. I miss Niseko. And, we're pretty much drunk at the bar. And he's like, "I'm going to open a shop there. You should run it one day." And so, that planted a seed. And then I was having an awesome season. I was working part-time guiding, working in a pizza shop, hanging out. My wife was working at our favorite bar. And at that point, I was just like, I miss Niseko. And as I said, every time I went back there, because I'd go back there at the end of the seasons, sometimes with you as well, to hang out. And I just missed it because I felt at home there, and I didn't really have that love in Hakuba yet. So I decided that I'd do anything I could to go back there next season. I could have gone back as a guide. I felt like I could have built a career with Rhythm. And I talked to my mates who had the guiding company, and they said, Rhythm look after their staff the best. That's a solid option. That's what I'd do. So I took the plunge and said, "Can you give my wife a visa as well?" And went down that path. I did 2 seasons in Niseko and had a great time. Had heaps of power. However, at that stage, Rhythm had opened up the shop in Hakuba, gone through 2 managers in 2 years because they didn't have
They didn't have an Aussie. They didn't have an Austin toner.
No, they didn't.
They needed one.
And at that point, I knew that there was an opportunity there. And Alicia had also built a really good reputation with Rhythm. That's my wife. So even though I knew I'd miss Niseko, I knew that the better opportunity was to go down in Hakuba. So I did a couple of years as store manager, my wife doing more of a finance, me more of operational. And, from that stage, we were 30 staff, did everything I could to build relations, build up a team. First year was really difficult. And then, I think it was, 6, 7, 8 years later, 100 plus staff, general manager, part business owner, 3 shops, great reputation. And yeah, I'd made Hakuba my home. I have a house there now, which I look forward to getting back to. And yeah, I just built everything from there, I guess. And I guess what I was touching at is my parents came over to Huckleberry and saw it right at the infancy when we had one shop and we hadn't done a lot of renovations. We renovated our big shop in Watano every year. And then they came back last year and stayed in the Evo Hotel when it had just opened before it's been renovated. And they saw how much Huckleberry had grown and changed. So they went from, my God, you're not a ski bum, to, wow, you're doing this in Japan, to holy shit.
Yeah.
This is massive. Yeah, I guess it's a good point to bring that all together. Yeah, it was a big journey. And, the last few years doing it with kids and family got harder and harder in Japan due to language barriers and all the rest. Yeah, here we are. It all worked out for the best, and
huge journey. And another, a great example, I think, of, we said that it's cool to see that there's not just one, but there's varying pathways from being a young frother, be it 3 years old at Falls Creek or be it 20 years old at Fernie or whatever it is. There's so many pathways that you can take to forge a life in the snow industry, and you can have a pretty rad time as you walk that yellow brick road, for sure.
Well, I guess, I probably rambled on a bit too much there, but I think that kind of sums it up for me. There's obviously lots of parts in between, and I'm sure, as we talk to other people that we know in this industry who we've shared moments with, we'll get to them. But
we'll extract it all out of you over the coming months and years.
Yes, hopefully years. But Maddie, let's turn this around. Like, how did it all start for you?
Very similarly, obviously growing up in Adelaide as well, a far cry from being a mountain town. But I was the same. I was fortunate enough as a kid that my parents were able to take us over to the snow for a week or so a year. And I was the same. It was always the holiday I looked forward to. I remember being super jealous of my sister because her birthday's on the 8th of August and we were often in the snow for her birthday. And I thought it was pretty unfair that she got to have her birthday in the snow. So I always had this, over the years, I kind of just had this. And, I did the same. I, went through ski school and all that. And, took pride in going from one level in ski school to the next level in ski school and all that as a kid. And I guess I also maybe somewhat just in the subconsciously saw the joy that the holidays to the snow brought my parents as well. And we used to go with another family, some family friends, and and there'd be 6 of us kids or whatever running around, 5 or 6 of us kids running around, and the parents would be be in the lodge eating dinner and drinking wine, and we were tearing around playing table tennis or whatever it was, and life was pretty rad. And then we'd get up in the morning and go skiing. So that introduction was very much the same. And then I sort of was a bit the same. I probably nerded out a little bit more in the late high school years and sort of knuckled down to to get through that stage of education. One of the biggest turning points for me was in year 2000. There was the Olympics in Sydney, so it was quite a affordable, very much in inverted commas, affordable time for a family of 4 to vacation, internationally.
Yep.
That was sort of the first time that we as a family went overseas, and we went to Europe, and we had this epic trip. And I was 13 or 14 or something at the time, and I remember sort of being, a bit of an annoying teenage boy probably at that point in time, like stuff that was super cool. I was trying to pretend like it wasn't cool and act very unfazed and unimpressed by a lot of it. I'll never forget rolling up to our accommodation in Innsbruck in Austria. And this is in, I don't know, September or whatever it was, whenever the Olympics was on. I can't even remember, but it was not snow season in Europe, but we were in Innsbruck, and the accommodation we had, you could see out of the window kind of up to the glaciers and up where Stubai was. And I woke, I think we got in late at night, so I hadn't seen it. And I woke up in the morning and I looked outside and I was like, holy shit, they're real mountains. They're not play mountains.
We're not in Falls Creek anymore.
We're not in Falls Creek anymore. And I just remember thinking, this is some of the most incredible scenery I've ever seen. And my my dad and I went and skied on the glacier at Stubai just for the one day, and I was like, this is pretty much the coolest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
And nothing you did with your mum or dad or anyone at 13 was the coolest thing you'd ever done. But that was the coolest thing I'd ever done. And so that sort of started the love affair, I guess, with the mountains as a whole. And then, I guess got through school and uni, and I went to uni and started my degree, which was a Bachelor of Commerce, and I was majoring in accounting and corporate finance. And I had this vision of, and you can imagine me now doing it, but I had this vision. I wanted to be a merchant banker or potentially a stockbroker, but I was more a merchant banker. So had things gone slightly differently, I might be a finance bro right now. But thankfully...
came to your senses?
Yeah, I came to my senses, yeah. Me and another one of our good mates, we decided to take a summer vacation,
And I think I remember seeing this because probably like Facebook or whatever was before. Maybe it was MySpace.
Yeah, I think it was pre-Facebook, potentially.
MySpace, and we had that other
Maybe.
thing in between. Remember, we'd
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember seeing you and our other mate going over to, I believe you went to Vale and Beaver Creek.
We went to Vale. We were talking about all these different things that we could possibly do. And I was like, man, when I was a kid, I always thought, because we used to get advertising from Vale for some reason, like Falls Creek and stuff like that would get most, this is pre like Japan being a popular destination. Most of the marketing was for like, classic.
Yeah.
It was for Vale. It was for, Boscheval, it was for Steamboat, it was for like, these were the aspirational resorts that we were looking at.
I guess why that touched on me so much is because that's the one my dad and his business partner back in the day when he was a car dealer, they went to Aspen and Vale and to all of that. And my dad, because I frothed on skiing so much, he just showed me all these photos and saying how amazing it was. So when I saw that you were there, it kind of was like, oh
yeah, it was. And I had weirdly, I had another moment when we got to Vale, and now I think about it, thanks to my mum and dad for letting me just go as an 18-year-old kid to Vale by myself with a mate just to go on a ski season with no job, nothing, just a student visa, and that was about it. But same deal, man. We got to Vale at night, and we woke up in the morning, and we walked outside this lodge. We rented a room in a lodge for the first couple of nights. Woke up in the morning, and there was Vale like in front of us. Whoa. Across the other side of the I-70 or whatever it was, and we were just like, this is the most epic thing ever. And quickly found out that skiing POW is a completely different skill set to skiing at Falls Creek or Mount Theberton, and so was humbled very quickly, but also very quickly got the bargain. Even in that first season, I was fortunate enough to get to go to Aspen. I stayed at the Armada house. This was in like the early days of Armada being like OG core freestyle ski brand, Tanner Hall, yada yada. And the house was like Tanner Hall, Pep Fugis, Johnson, I Peterson, and I was just like, man, this is my first season. This is the coolest thing. I'm there at X Games. I'm like, this is the coolest thing like ever.
Frothy.
And so I knew at that point that that I wanted sort of the snow world to be my life. So I changed some things with my uni degree. I dropped the corporate finance, decided not to be a finance bro.
Started to grow dreads.
Changed that major over to marketing because I was like, then I can be involved in whatever industry I love. Like as a marketer, you're kind of in the industry working with the product or the people or whatever. Anyway, that's how I saw it. And then same deal, I did much the same as yourself, years of back-to-back seasons between Canada, Japan, and Falls Creek, and then sort of had that moment after about 10 years of seasons where it was like, okay, the hand-to-mouth life is getting old. I need to forge a...
Just to touch on that, I think it's nice for you to explain as well, like, even if you couldn't do a season, like the first time you came and met me in Japan...
Yeah.
Because you'd had injuries and shoulders, you'd still be like, I'm coming for a month. I don't care how I'm doing it. You were super dedicated, and you'd have a few shoulder issues and surgeries, but you'd always make sure that you'd get there, and then generally throw a front flip or something and bloody do your shoulder again because you got overexcited. But there was definitely, from both of us, always dedication to the cause. And, we ended up, magazine shoots together, trying to outdo each other back in the day in some epic snow. So, yes, humble beginnings, but we tried to push it as hard as we could.
We got there all right, yeah. And I mean, I think it shows as well that sometimes, like, I did, as you say, I did a couple of seasons where I really couldn't even ski, or I could only ski for a month or so of the season because of injuries or surgeries or whatever. But what I found was that the attraction of the industry wasn't, as time went on, it wasn't only about the skiing. It was about the people, it was about the vibe, it was about, I still wanted to know about next year's product. I still wanted to know about cool up and coming brands. I still wanted to be connected in the industry. Yeah, 100%. And so whether or not I could ski, that was, I mean, it was a very important part, but when it couldn't be an integral part, the rest of it was enough, for me to be happy.
Just to be involved.
Yeah, just to be involved. And so, yeah, the end of the kind of, and it's the same as you said, that managing a handful of stores and managing a heap of staff and doing all that kind of stuff. And that was cool, but it was still seasonal and it was still hand to mouth. And I got to the point where I sort of thought, man, maybe time to move on. But my idea was never to leave the industry and go and do a real job, right? My idea was to go and find a real job that would allow me to get paid to go to the snow instead of having to pay to go to the snow, sort of in a more, in a more commercial role, I suppose. And so I spent a little bit of time with Billabong. After that, I relocated to Queensland. And after missing out on a couple of marketing opportunities that I was keen on with Billabong, I sort of started to look elsewhere and was fortunate enough to land a rep job with Oakley. And I knew that if I got in with a brand like Oakley, that there would always be a path back to the snow.
And I guess at that point as well, there was a bit of a cool clique that we knew from the snow and who've gone on to even bigger and better things, either with Oakley or with other brands. And it was a pretty good time for you to get your foot in the door there. And
and I was given a nice assist as well by one of the boys that was already working there. He sort of helped usher me through the process, I suppose, or get me in front of the right people at the right time. But I did 3 years in a sales rep role in a state that's essentially focused on the surf industry. But I had 2 or 3 accounts that I looked after that were snow accounts, and I poured a lot of energy into that. And I took from that, obviously, some great learnings, but also, started to learn the other side of the snow industry, being the wholesale side. And then a role came up to manage the snow business for Oakley for Australia and New Zealand. So relocated back down to Victoria, sort of 4 or 5 hours from our humble beginnings at Falls Creek. And I did that for a few years.
At this point, I was super stoked because Matt had been up in Queensland. He bought a house up there. I just was obviously in Japan back and forth and built my house here in Torquay. And Matty was back close and working, even though he was always, 1 degree of separation, which is snow and surf. He was back in the game. I knew I'd see him up in the mountains a lot more, so I was stoked.
Yeah, that was, to be honest, that was the point at which I was kind of like, all right, I've made it. Like I was in New Zealand at the time, actually, on a ski holiday with my now wife and another friend, and we were on our way out to like the bungee jumping thing, the never bungee swing thing or whatever. And my boss at the time rang me and he said, this guy's leaving. There's an opportunity to run the snow business for Australia and New Zealand. What do you want to do and where do you want to do it from? And I was like, I feel like I've waited my whole life for this opportunity. Like, you're kidding. I'm going to move close to the snow and let's go for it. And my wife at the time my partner at the time, who's now my wife, she had been led down this garden path of the fact that she was going to move up to Queensland to this sunny, beach sort of lifestyle, hanging out at the beach all the time, warm weather. And I had to turn to her on the way out to the bungee and be like, I just kind of committed to moving to Melbourne, which is not renowned for its weather. So we were in a very good place at the time because we were in New Zealand and everything was cool and everything was fun, and she was in that snow life. So the timing was actually pretty good. So we got through that, and then had more recently the opportunity to head up the Smith business for Asia Pacific. So that's where I'm at now, and I love it. So same deal, journey from humble beginnings that was driven by a love for the sport of skiing, but also a passion for the industry, the environment, the alpine and mountain lifestyle. And a real burning desire to make that my life without being the old guy working hourly in the rental shop.
Yeah, 100%. That's great, Matty. But do you want to touch any more on how Smith came about and what you're kind of doing now at all with that?
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to be sort of, Smith reached out to me, said they were looking, to change the way that they were running the business throughout Asia Pacific. It had historically been run sort of out of the US, and they wanted someone based in the region to sort of run the brand. And I went through the interview process sort of a little bit nonchalant, like excited about the opportunity, but a little bit nonchalant. I was really, really happy with where I was at Oakley, and I had incredible mentor in my boss, and I was working with some really cool people, and I loved what I did, and I felt like I was doing okay at it, and it was enjoyable day to day. But as time went on, I sort of felt myself through the Smith process being more and more and more keen to take on this larger role and be exposed to, regions, I guess, a larger, international business opportunity, I suppose, and have the opportunity to sort of manage a business and work in a business, intimately and essentially run a business in multiple countries that also were, blossoming in terms of the snow industry, particularly at the time. And so, yeah, I mean, it was an incredible opportunity, and it remains an incredible opportunity. I'm very fortunate to do what I do and to be involved in the snow industry in countries like Korea and in countries like China, which is booming at the moment, in countries like Japan. Yeah, it's super cool. And I've got an amazing team. I've had the ability to, I've essentially been handed the reins for the business in the region, and I've had a lot of fun and a lot of autonomy, and yeah, it's been an incredible learning experience. Going from being a sales rep essentially, or managing a small portion of a brand in a small region, to managing a huge region and the entirety of the brand. It felt like a little bit of a, one giant leap kind of scenario. But I like to think that I've grown into the role and that I'm slowly starting to be able to manage it. So super fun journey, but I think again highlights the fact that there's different avenues and different people will apply their skill set and the nuance they have in their personality and their passion to find a way to do something they love. And I think it's so easy to throw it away and I heard from so many people through the season life and even through till now, so many people that are kind of like, oh, I wish I could do what you do. I'm like, well, you could have. You just chose not to walk that path and to do those hand to mouth years and to do all this other stuff. Like if you follow it, anyone can do it. It's just a matter of, seeing the vision and walking the path rather than sort of just thinking, oh, you just got to be super lucky to land there, Well,
I couldn't agree more, because the amount of people, especially that I've mentored and been boss to, who are like me, listened to their parents and said, you can't do this forever. And, did a season or two and went back to uni and will end up possibly, maybe not, doing something that they're not passionate about because that's the rat race that they believe they should be in. Is, I used to really work hard to try and get people to do another season and that they could build a career. And I guess a little bit by the end of it, I'd have the chat and say there's opportunities here for you. But you can tell it's either they really want it and they want to live doing what they believe in and what they really want, or they just, feel that it's not there. So I guess that's a really a good point to make. Like if you really want it and you really want to do it, don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
And you don't have to grow up in a ski town to be able to do that. You know what I mean? Much like you can probably grow up in Colorado and forge a path for yourself with a career in the surf industry if you commit to doing it. Or
in finance or whatever you want to do.
It could have been a. I mean, I do think about it sometimes though, and I go like, maybe the other thing is we have a finance team, right?
Yeah.
And they work across multiple of the brands that our parent company owns. But a lot of them enjoy working on the Smith side of the business because they feel tethered to the culture and the vibe of the industries that Smith operates in. So even if you're an accounts receivable officer, that doesn't mean that you can't be an accounts receivable officer for a super cool brand that operate. If you love golf, go and be an accounts receivable officer for TaylorMade or for Titleist or something. No, if you're a customer service lord, and you don't like mobile phones, don't work at Telstra. Go and be a customer service lord for Rip Curl if you love surfing, or for Wolf of the Willows or Blackman's if you love beer, or do you know what I mean?
100%. Do what you feel passionate about, and don't make exceptions for what you believe in, I guess, really. Just go for it.
I think we'll hear it too, from a lot of the, if the idea is to speak with, and to have guests on that are, that represent the different facets of the industry, I'm almost certain that we'll hear the same sort of story, right? Like a story of this is the world in which I made my initial entrance into, and some will have grown up in the Vale Valley, lived and breathed skiing from day one, and they'll have a different journey, but it will still be the same journey of these moments in time that made you want to stay, right? Because for a lot of people, they might leave, or they might decide, skiing's not for me, or you know what I mean? But there's always, no matter where you come from, if you apply and indulge that passion, whatever it may be, that regardless of whether you're an athlete or a business owner or a local mechanic, you can still live and breathe that industry 100%. And that lifestyle.
I think that kind of sums up our story somewhat. We could sit here and
we should call out that a heap of those seasons were done together as well.
Yes,
which is why we're sitting here now, but also why we'll probably have some shared stories over the journey of a lot of seasons and times and
I guess a big thing that we're going to want to do when we start interviewing these local legends and business owners and entrepreneurs and pros, we really want to get a little bit of an insight into what got them there, or what was their favorite piece of equipment when that they remember, and what's a weird or funny story.
Let's bring some nostalgia into this thing.
And some froth and some giggles. So Maddie and I have hundreds of hilarious, weird stories. I remember, one time Maddie came to visit me in Japan. I just kind of started down in Hakuba. It was a tough season. Ended up helping me drive one of the vans back up to Niseko across Honshu, then catching the ferry up to Hokkaido to then drive back to Niseko. We got to ski a whole bunch of POW in Moiwa, and then we got really, really intoxicated one night, and Matthew hadn't vomited in about 10 years and did that night, so that was really good. He felt really insecure the next day. And, another time, which we can touch on these stories later, we left Hakuba, went up to Niseko for the end of the season, shredded hard for a week, partied hard for a week. Then I was going to Thailand because I'd recently broke up with ex-missus. Maddie was like, I'm going to come. And we were at the airport. He was about to buy a ticket with me and realised he didn't have his passport. I think I threw up in the disabled toilets that day.
Do you know what I also realised at that point in time? I don't know if you remember this. We caught the bus from Niseko to Sapporo Airport, and you left to from Sapporo to Thailand. And at the time that when we got off the bus, not only did I not have my passport, I didn't have my bags. I left my skis in the ski room, my boots in the boot locker. I left all my clothes all over the ground, and somehow thought it was appropriate to get on the bus without bringing any of my stuff with me. So I'm not sure where I thought we were going, but I had to call in the help of a good Japanese friend who was able to carefully negotiate with the accommodation owners to have all of my personal belongings packed up and returned.
Would have been a fun time in Thailand with that start, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I'm not sure where all my stuff would have gone then.
So yeah, we've had
there'll be plenty of it.
We've had a lot of fun times, done, many, many winters together, shared the love of snow together pretty much, from a similar age, from the same town, went to school together. And, I kind of left living in Japan and, threw away my Gaijin card to to that, obviously, I still have a house there. And I was like, I don't know what's next because I was having a bit of a career break. And,
Only friends.
here we are. So anything else to add, Maddie?
I just hope that we get to do one of these episodes from your house in Hucklebar at some point in time. But
100% we will.
I'm looking forward to now that the audience has heard from us. I'm excited to be able to extract some gold out of some other people instead of having to come up with it myself.
Yes. So yeah, I'm sure you'll get plenty of opportunities to hear more from us, but there's plenty of gold to be extracted from the legends we've met along the way. So thanks for listening. We look forward to sharing more froth and bringing you stories from a whole bunch of legends all around the world.
Take care of yourselves and each other.
Oi, yeah, me know. This is Kia Bamba, so we run the whole of Switzerland and the whole of Europe, and we run the whole of etc. You don't know, devil shaman says so, me I bat them to the max. And it's like some idiot so want to stop them from get a piece of the pie. Oh, I'm to no disrespect, gonna go and die. Yeah, me know. Kia Bamba, them up dubs, we play fast, I play slow, them up flows. Like nobody knows, them kill sound, a sound clash and dance all. And mash up stage shows, but some guys don't recognize, I realize. So them up them own style. A long time them they know, them not just come. And it's been a long while. Them want a piece of the pie. Whole heap of doublet and tune up a buy. Food fi feed them family, that's no lie. Any idiot little sound try fi test them a go die. Them not give up. Look how long them a wait. A full time now them fi get a slice of the cake. No sound fix because them bust through the gate. Through them play a good tune and this a sound the people rate. Them we mash you up. All over the UK, America and JA. People want Kia Bamba in a dance. Them no business at all. Could have friend or foe before.